Never let yourself be diverted either by what you would wish to believe or by what you think could have beneficent social effects if it were believed. But look only and solely at what are the facts.
Deconverted Man here, and today I'm going to be looking at a video from the YouTuber helasmoh. He starts with the logical fallacy of cherry picking as he's using video footage from the H2 channel. I want to take a note about this particular set of words. Although it might be true that many or even most atheists claim lack of evidence for the existence of God is the reason for their atheism, it doesn't necessarily mean that that is why they are an atheist. So this already indicates a straw man. We see the words, find out the real reason for their atheism, and we see a clear indicator of special knowledge.
Since the Middle Ages, scientists have developed sophisticated new theories about the enormity of the universe and our place in it. Theories that often have no room for God.
This is the logical fallacy of a half-truth. The truth part is that these scientific theories don't have God in them. But the lie is that they don't have room for it in them. The thing is, God is not something within science, at least not today. It might be that tomorrow we discover empirical evidence or a repeatable test about God that allows us to put God into science, but it's not true today, so it's not a part of science. To say there's no room indicates that we're not allowing this in when we might be perfectly happy to have it in. It just doesn't fit in yet because of its very nature.
Many phenomena have appeared mysterious or miraculous or magical.
Hold on. I just want to ask some critical questions. Who are you? I mean, what is it that you study? It appears by the caption underneath you that you're from a university in Berkeley, and that's all I know.
But while scientific theories, observations, and experiments tell us where we are in the cosmos, they don't answer the eternal questions. Why we're here, and who, if anyone, created us.
Appeal to consequence and begging the question. So what if science doesn't ask the why questions? Now, I could argue that if we construct language in a different way, we could have science answer why questions. But even if it was the case that science could never answer the why question, so what? Then this is a begging of the question because you can't just say who created the universe. It assumes that there is a who. To say what created the universe also would assume something, would assume something created the universe. So here we have a problem of natural language where you have to have the right word. Many scientists have said that when it comes to this question of how or why is the universe here, that our words are just not formulated correctly to even ask that question. It's an improper formulation of the words, a malformed question, an additional logical fallacy. Although in normal conversation, that doesn't matter. We can ask how or even why is the universe here. We can ask what created it or even who created it because we're not engaging in a persuasionary dialogue. But when we shift into informal logic, these words take on new meanings, and because of that, the logical fallacies must be invoked to steer away from those logical fallacies towards better conclusions, something that this program isn't concerned with doing.
So some physicists continue to search for those answers. What they're finding is extraordinary. A remarkable unseen order that may govern the universe.
More critical questions come to mind. What physicists are seeing this data? What is this data? Is this a hypothesis or a theory? Who agrees? Who doesn't agree? What's the name of this theory or hypothesis? Are we ever going to find out the answer to these critical questions in this video? The answer to that is no. This logical fallacy is irrelevancy.
We're all struck by the beauty and majesty of the natural world about us. The trees and the sky and the beauty of a sunset.
Why, yes, guy on table whose name I have no idea. You're right. Most of us are struck by the beauty of these things. Who are you? What do you study? Why am I listening to you? Why are you sitting on a table? These questions will never be answered in this video, will they?
It is awesome in its majesty. How can we make sense of it all?
How are we possibly going to answer these questions? With science? I don't know. Seemed to me like science would be a good answer for that. No? No, we're not gonna. No? Okay.
Some people think of this as like a cosmic code.
Regardless of whether or not they believe in God, most scientists agree the cosmic code appears to exist.
Normally this would be an appeal to authority and an appeal to popularity. Unless it was an outright lie, which is what it is. There's no such thing as this theory of cosmic code at all. It doesn't exist. It's not a real theory. It's completely made up for this program. Guy on table says this, and then announcer guy who is never identified says that most scientists agree, even though they don't. You'll never find a speech or a presentation about the cosmic code. I highly doubt there are any published papers on it because it's not a thing. So, outright lie. Let's just lie because we don't have an argument.
Everything in the universe is determined by the fundamental forces of nature.
No, we couldn't have another erroneous appeal to authority, could we? We do.
The strengths of those forces are characterized by numbers called fundamental constants that are so sensitive that if they changed by just a little bit, the universe as we know it wouldn't be here.
If things were different, things would be different.
Had changed by 1 part in a quintillion. A quintillion is 1 with 18 zeros after it. The universe would continue to expand.
Meaningless numbers. Just meaningless. We don't really need to know what a quintillion is. We don't really need to know that if it was different, that it would be different again. But what's the point? Really, what's the point that we're trying to get to with this big, giant, impressive number? It couldn't possibly be an appeal to ignorance, could it? Could it be that it's so big of a number that it can't possibly be here by fill in the blank? No. That conclusion can't possibly be the conclusion that we're reaching for, can it?
To illustrate just how small a number 1 part in a quintillion is, imagine all the grains of sand on this beach. In fact, imagine all the grains of sand in all the world's beaches. That number is probably somewhere around a quintillion. In this analogy, if all that sand represented the rate of expansion of the universe right after the Big Bang, how many grains of sand would I need to add or subtract to wreck the universe? Just one brain, one in a quintillion. That's how precise things had to be for us to be here.
Had it been perfectly smooth, then there wouldn't be any clumps which would gravitate and form stars and galaxies.
Oh, hello, guy in blue shirt whose name and credentials we'll never find out. What was that you said about if things were different, things would be different?
Had those irregularities been much smaller, stars and galaxies wouldn't have formed. Had they been much larger, everything would have collapsed and formed black holes.
But even with the way distributions of matter throughout the universe, life would still never have formed. With our complex series of processes inside stars that converted helium and hydrogen, and heavier elements like carbon, to form the basis of all living beings.
You know, after making irrelevancy so often, I'm sure that this program can't possibly do it again.
Or even if the physical constants had been a little bit different from what they really are, this process of nuclear fusion and the explosion of stars might not have been possible, and we wouldn't be here discussing it.
Well, I stand corrected.
I don't know a single scientist who would disagree with the statement that the world is exceedingly ingenious.
Guy on table has performed logical fallacy of personal incredulity.
How could this extraordinary fine-tuning of the universe be anything less than unmistakable evidence of a divine creator?
And here we run into a little tiny problem that I call outright lie. There isn't fine-tuning. That's not a word that you're going to find in actual science, but we're not doing actual science anymore. The constants that they keep referring to are not so precise. In fact, they could be better for life. We don't find life all over the universe. We have only found it here so far on this small planet of ours. Now, granted, we haven't been able to examine many planets yet, but if it was so fine-tuned for life, then one would think we would find life everywhere. Here we finally have YouTuber helasmoh ask us his poignant question that is really nothing more than an appeal to personal incredulity again. Even if we were to say that there was no logical explanation other than this particular one, that wouldn't necessarily mean that this particular logical explanation was, in fact, the reality of the situation. That's not how science works. Just because we don't have an explanation for what it is, or we only have one explanation, doesn't necessarily mean that that is the explanation. We need to work very hard to gather as much data as we can to actually debunk the theory, to disprove our own theory. And if we can't do that, if all of the data says, yes, this is true, if all of the work and effort that we put into it says it's true, then we're warranted to conclude that it's true. But not in the realm of logic. Only in the realm of science can we do that.
So while it appears a divine creator planned the universe,
No, that's not how it appears at all. Going to go ahead and call this Nonsekret.
many physicists say apparent fine-tuning doesn't prove anything of the sort.
But who cares what they say?
Something else must be at work.
Oh man, I hope it's the flying spaghetti monster.
But what, other than God, could possibly explain the remarkable series of events that led to the creation of life in our universe?
Is it the flying spaghetti monster?
It's the multiple universe theory.
Aw, man, how disappointing. I'm sorry, I know I'm supposed to be mentioning every single logical fallacy. I'm just getting distracted by how utterly, dismally stupid that this production is. I'll get back to showing all the logical fallacies right now.
One very popular contender is an idea that seems at least as incredible as the idea of God.
Let me just see if I can understand the statement just made here, because I might have it wrong, and the viewers that watch this, I would implore you, correct my logic if it seems I'm flawed on this, but Wouldn't God be the highest, biggest idea that we humans could ever conceive, and thus nothing could even get close to it? Nothing would be as incredible because it wouldn't even approach the incredibleness of that idea. So that's insulting. Secondly, wouldn't the less incredible explanation be the explanation that you would go for, using Occam's razor? I mean, if my car is stolen, I'm not going to think that a trained bamboo from the zoo has stolen it. That might be the case, but the more plausible explanation is that a human did it. So it's not as incredible as the idea that a trained bamboo has stolen my vehicle. So I would go with the less incredible idea that a human has stolen my vehicle. And so this statement actually would work against their idea, and therefore this whole program would become utterly stupid by this one statement. Good job, announcer person whose name and credentials we'll never find out.
A very large number of universes, perhaps even an infinite number.
So here's the problem. There's two different types of infinity. There's the infinity that starts at a point and then continues to count forever. And then there's the infinity that didn't start because it's always been counting, which is closer to the concept of eternity, which, if logically incoherent, would mean that God could not exist eternally. So, I don't know, just call me a stickler for sticking to logic, but there's this thing called special pleading. You can't just say that infinity isn't a real thing and then say, oh, but it is for eternity because it's a different word and now has different standards attached. So you've got to pick. Either infinity can and does exist in both states, or it can't, and thus no God can exist in the eternal sense that many theists would project God existing in. Pick one. You can't have it both ways. So this explanation is the special knowledge logical fallacy. Now, many at this point will just simply say this is a conspiracy theory, and why bother showing all the other logical fallacies in this video? Just call it what it is. This is nothing more than a conspiracy theory, and we should just ignore it. Well, having it be a conspiracy theory has to be proven. You need to show good reasons to say that it's a conspiracy theory, and since the word theory means a explanation of things, you need to show that this explanation of things is invalid. Well, we've done that by showing the number of logical fallacies leading up to this point. Additionally, because he's given no positive proofs for his idea here, we can now safely conclude that this is not a warranted conclusion. Although I would agree that there are theists out there that say essentially God did it, my critical question for this person that made this video would be, how does your theory stand out from theirs? You've simply said big numbers equal God, and also all the scientists somehow know this, but they don't want to support religion, even if they are religious themselves. And you really haven't given us any logical reason to go where you want us to go. So, how is your explanation any better than theirs? Again, we have the more special knowledge logical fallacy going on. There's no way that this person knows that these things are true. They're just coming up with some sort of explanation that they think fits the problem that they think is here. Here again, we have more special knowledge logical fallacy. The real reason is this convoluted conspiracy theory that I've come up with. It's not what they're telling you, even though they would be the ones that would know the reason. No. I've figured out the real reason. And here we have our final logical fallacy, special pleading. If you just look at it this way, then you'll see it. Unless or until helasmoh presents us with a logically coherent argument, we must be skeptical about his conclusion. Thanks for listening, and I leave you with this.
In a vast hyperspace.
We can understand the idea of hyperspace by comparing it to a mug of beer.